Welcome back to Becoming an Influencer, your podcast with Amanda Jewell, where I sit down with inspiring professionals, students, and creatives to talk about what it takes to be successful and their journey to becoming an influencer. Today, I have a different kind of conversation, and we will be talking about Black Lives Matter and everything going on right now. I'm sitting down with my lovely friend and technically producer of this podcast because she does have me in this podcast studio. But Yoki, take it away. Introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Well, I'm just a content creator at heart, but I do some marketing things, as a job. Nothing serious, of course, but right now I'm definitely an activist as well. So
yes,
you did something to pop on.
So thankful to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very excited.
Yeah. But I do want to preface out a few things. One, I have not, will not, or ever experienced what it's like to be a Black person, or any person of color in that matter. So I am just solely here to have this conversation that we're encouraging a lot of you to have, whether it be with other people in the Black community or just your white family or friends. Like, this is the goal right now. And then the other thing is, it's not the responsibility of your Black friends, students, coworkers, colleagues, neighbors, etc. to educate you on anything, especially the centuries of oppression to Black people in America. Yeah. And I'm just really thankful to have you here to have this conversation because I acknowledge that you and everyone else is extremely exhausted and tired. So thanks.
Oh, girl, of course. This is a super important conversation that I think some people are really scared to have. And I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're not raised feeling like they should feel bad about something that's benefited them for so long.
For sure.
And whenever you try to tell them about it, they kind of take it as confrontational, and instead of trying to understand the problem, they get defensive.
Yes.
And so sometimes, and that's honestly why the protesters are so tired. I mean, like, if there are rioters, first of all, I don't condone violence either, but at the same time, like, people are tired at the end of the day. And also there are people that have their own intentions, you know what I'm saying? But there are peaceful protesters that are trying to get their point across, and it's falling on deaf ears.
Definitely.
You know what I'm saying? And people love quoting MLK Jr. and they're like, he wouldn't have wanted this. And I'm just thinking, like, oh, did he tell you that recently? Or did he come back from the grave? You know what I'm saying? Like, people forget, like, despite the peaceful protesting, they shot him anyways.
Right.
So I'm just kind of like, what point are you trying to make exactly? You know what I'm saying? And on Twitter, his own kids, his own sons, they're saying what their own father said to them. They had dinner with this man every night. I don't know. Yeah. I mean, they were raised by this person, and here are outsiders, not even just outsiders like people outside their family, but other white people, other Americans talking about, well, your father wouldn't have wanted this. And I'm just, can you imagine? Like, that, someone's telling you about your own dad.
Definitely.
That doesn't make any sense. And even to say that MLK is not perfect, and even at some point he quoted, like, he acknowledged that protesting peacefully wasn't working.
Right.
And they love to leave that out.
So are these people telling them that? Are they people of color, or are they white people?
It's mostly white people. But then I'm not going to rule out other people of color who are ignorant,
100%.
who are also saying the same thing. But it's just like, how can you fix your mouth to say something like that? Yeah,
no, it's so insensitive.
Right. So to me, because I guess Malcolm X was seen as his rival, which is funny because they were just doing the same thing. Yeah. It was just they had different extremes and different ways of going about it. But at some point, he was like I said, like, he was telling one of his friends, like, this, it feels like we're merging with a burning house. Like, it's not, he acknowledged that it wasn't working. And also the same people who are trying to put him as an icon, like, at the time, 75% of America did not like that man. You know what I'm saying? Like, if you put that into perspective, that's a lot of fucking people. I'm sorry. No, it is. I don't know if I can curse on the podcast, but if it comes out, it comes out. I'm sorry, but yeah, because I'm just like, are y'all saying this? Because the thing is, if MLK had lived, the energy would have been different. Right. Because if we're doing the exact same thing, why are you responding so hostilely? Like, what?
Definitely. And someone actually tweeted today or yesterday that along with all 50 states protesting for Black Lives Matter and standing with George Floyd and the countless other men and women of color that have been killed in the hands of law enforcement, 18 other countries have been protesting, and it was said that this is the largest civil rights movement ever. Yeah.
It's insane. And it's just like, literally, political leaders are like, where is your president? Like, not even just like, they don't live here, so, they don't really experience his policies and his stuff firsthand. But even from the outside looking in, this one girl, I think she was living in Korea, and she was talking about how literally, mind you, in South Korea, it's all over the news.
Okay.
Everywhere.
Wow.
And so people are protesting there too, but their question is more so like, why is this, not really like, why is this happening, but more like, how? It's like, what?
Good question.
Like, you know what I'm like? Yeah, it's a viable question. They're like, we literally had civil wars about this same problem. Like, y'all not. It's like, did y'all miss something? Like, what's not clicking? It's just, people are kind of just, because for us, it's like, damn, this is really annoying. We've been dealing with this for centuries now, A, B, C, and D. Definitely. But then people outside of the country are like, aren't y'all the land of the freedom? Like, what?
Yeah, what's going on? It's not adding up.
Yeah, so it's like, I'm trying to put 2 and 2 together, and I'm not getting 4 because something's not making any sense. So now we're just trying to explain to our own legislation, to our own authority, and to everybody else because everyone's confused.
Definitely.
So it's just like, for us, it's outrage because it's affecting us directly, but then to everybody else, it's like, what the hell y'all doing over there?
Yeah.
Y'all be boasting y'all's country all the fucking time. Sorry.
No, and that's so true. And my friend Elise Mazakian actually brought to my attention that the kind of protests and the riots going on in America right now are actually worse than some of the protests that America intervenes in other countries. And so that really like slapped me in the face.
Girl, not even, there's that, right? Because first of all, let's not even talk about American presence in the Middle East. That's just
right.
discussion for another day.
Definitely.
But even just the riots that took place on American soil, for American against American, like significantly worse. Like
definitely.
I mean, people love saying Boston Tea Parties and Nate's Rebellion and all the other stuff. But even like the most recent deadly riot that I could think of was like in the 60s. Right. And it was during the segregation stuff. Like university, like people died. Right. Because they didn't want to go to school with black kids.
It's insane.
So to me, I'm just kind of like, I mean, obviously their writing didn't work, but I mean, with good reason. I mean, literally just moral compass, like, hello, you're not, why? But more so just when we're fighting for something that we really want, we haven't gotten it. It's been like, what? It's 2020, 1968 was when MLK died.
Yes.
So like a little over 50 years, something like that. Like it's barely been 50 years. His kids are still alive.
Yeah.
His wife only died like, what, 10 years ago?
That's insane.
Doesn't make any sense.
I'm glad it's all coming up. It's embarrassing that it's having to come up. And it's sad how real this problem is. And I think just to anyone that hasn't gone out and watched some of the movies or films that are being recommended right now, I highly suggest it. I watched 13th, and it really showed how the justice system was built on the concept of slavery and that they weren't able to legally have slaves anymore. So what would they do? Oh, they would incarcerate majority black men and women and have them work for like insane wages, because in jail they're allowed to do that. It's like you work for like a penny on the hour or something. And so I don't know, you guys definitely need to watch it, and it'll give you a whole different perspective about everything going on, like, because this isn't like these riots and the violence and stuff, they're not really the protests. Like those are completely like the protests, and the killing of George Floyd was the catalyst to all of this, right? But the violence and the riots and that, those are just like some of the outcomes. And also, I will say, like, a lot of the people that are joining this are taking advantage of Black Lives Matter. And like you see these white kids go in and loot, and then they'll run out and they'll have a bunch of stuff that they've stolen, and they'll say Black Lives Matter. But that's not the same. Like they're missing like the whole movement and the concept of the movement.
Yeah, and there's like some videos where you'll literally see these kids, or just people who are clearly not there for the protest. Right. They'll attempt to break the windows. They'll attempt to like break in, and you'll literally see protesters come and stop them. Like, what the hell are you doing? Yes. Like you already know that if you do this, you're not going to get in trouble for it. And here's the thing: obviously, looters of various races. Like there was black people looting. There was Hispanic, white. But I mean that's not Black Lives Matter though.
Definitely not.
And the fact that people are so like insistent on trying to connect the two is very telling.
Definitely.
So it's just kind of like, okay, For one, there's a huge spike in unemployment right now.
Yes.
And yeah, there are people who are breaking into Gucci. There are people who are driving off the Mercedes lot with cars. I don't know how the hell they're doing that, but people are doing it apparently. But when people are looting like grocery stores, they're taking food, like they have to feed their families. And I really hate to say that it's gone to the point where people take looting as a point, like as a means of survival. Because even there are people who looted that Minneapolis Target. Mm-hmm. They redistributed those goods. Like they set up, I don't want to say camp, but like they set up like a place somewhere where they're giving like, toilet paper, they're giving milk, they're giving what's it called? Like, shit like that. Yeah. And also people forget to mention like the people who were protesting in Minneapolis when they went to get milk for for their eyes when they got tear gas, they refused to sell it.
This is like sickening.
And exactly, and Target funded the Minneapolis Police Department supposedly. So, I mean, if people started looting other stores, it was just kind of like open opportunity, like because it already happened to one. But Target, that was a specific Target, like
right.
That's really ironic to say that. I did not realize that. And again, I do not justify stealing and looting, but if we're talking to the definition of stealing and looting, the rich do it all the time to the middle class, and y'all don't say anything about it.
Wow, I love that. That's so true.
Jeff Bezos is going to be a trillionaire. He doesn't pay taxes. That doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense.
So I'm just like, because the thing is, what people do, what I've learned anyway, is they take a word, and people really underestimate the power of words.
Right.
Like I tell people, do not underestimate the like wordplay of the press.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So for looting, the first thing you're gonna think of is like, oh, robber, like
definitely
someone just coming out, put the money in the bag type shit, Yeah. And then also, racist white people historically have either like whenever they used to loot and do stuff, even at the Boston Tea Party, they would disguise themselves as either Native Americans or as black people. Well, during that time they were slaves, so
right.
So they what they would resort to was the Native Americans. So they'd like put like their headdress, quote unquote. It was probably looking ghetto as shit. I don't even know. And they would cover themselves in charcoal, and they'll dump tea into the ocean under the guise that they were Native Americans. So it's like that whole savagery thing, like that was put in place by your ancestors because they didn't want to claim their wrongdoings.
Definitely.
So they'd be like, oh, black people are this, black people are that. But then it's like, we didn't even have the privilege to steal from you.
Definitely.
It's like, we didn't have the chance. So where did it, you know what I'm saying? Like the stereotype, where does it come from really?
Definitely.
So people associate those words with certain things, like, like word association. Mm-hmm. So when they think of looters, they're like, oh, lots of black people. Ooh, all of a sudden stores are getting burned down and stolen. Clearly it's them.
Right. Definitely.
Exactly. So what I tell people is that's why I say read. When you see those little articles on Facebook, don't just read the headline and take it with what at face value. Like click that link and see what it actually says, because a lot of it's a bunch of bullshit, honestly.
No, the media is so construed right now.
Of course.
But it always has been, I think, because going back to just because it's on my mind, like 13th, it was showing how back in the civil rights movement, the media was doing exactly what's going on right now. Like the protests were happening for the right reasons, but then they were criminalizing the protesters and also like having things like looting and rioting associated with the movement. And so the media only saw the negative side.
Exactly. And also, who is the majority consuming that media?
Yeah.
You know what
You're white people.
Exactly. So, that's really funny that I say that now. So I was watching this interview the other day. I don't know if you've heard of this man, but his name is Richard Spencer.
That sounds familiar.
He's a very popular white nationalist. Like that's his thing. Like that's his brand. That's like if you were to ask him, like, is that what you believe? He'd be like, yes. And here's why. And so I forgot the interviewer's name. His name isn't coming to me, but
wait, so is he like a white supremacist? Like
no, he's a white supremacist, but it's not.
Oh, okay.
It's not the overt like, ooh, I hate. Insert minority here. It's like y'all can exist, but I just don't want my kids to be around you, and I don't think you should be in my neighborhoods.
Jesus.
And I also don't think you should have any. I feel like we should have the most of the power. Kind of a thing. So it's very people, and that's another thing. When you think of racism, at least when white people think of racism, they think of N-word this, racial slur this, this, that, and the other. Like you don't deserve, but it's so much deeper than that. Because this man openly confessed to saying, like, you know what, like there's just something happening. Like people keep asking for more people of color in certain movies, and at some point in the future, I'm going to be a minority. And the interviewers are like, well, I mean, well, yeah, like, you know, like interracial marriages
Yeah.
and we're trying to decrease like deaths of
Mhm.
people of color. Like, that's not a problem. Like, like, what's the issue? But to him, he's like, well, it's important that we have like white dominance. Like, I want my kids to grow up in a white society. But then he wasn't saying it in a way like, I don't want to be like y'all because I think I'm better than you.
Right.
Because, I mean, that's exactly what he's saying, but that's just not what he's saying, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
And he's like, he's a Trump supporter, but actually it's really ironic because he actually has a lot of socialist values. It's just that he just believes white people deserve power.
It's so bizarre.
Yeah.
And it's crazy because I think to the movie Get Out, if any of y'all have watched it.
Oh, girl.
And the very end, it kind of points out the fact that, or I guess if you research more about what the movie's about, it points out that Black people have superior traits, like that white people clearly are threatened by, or that, like, why is it that a Black man's body could host a white person, right? It was because they wanted to be stronger, they wanted to be faster, they wanted to be able to work harder, and it's crazy when you think of it like that.
Honestly.
And it makes a lot of sense because, I mean, I haven't read the book White Fragility, but I like the term. Like, it makes sense in, like, the insecurity of the white male, the white male species. Like, I think it really is a lot of, like, people being threatened by Black people's superior traits and, like, them needing to be like, oh, well, we need just, like, a white society because they're threatened by it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
you know, exactly. And it's like, it's specifically that. That's why slavery was a thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly.
Quite literally, like, so the colonialists came and they're like, all right, now we're here in new land, you know, damn, Native Americans, y'all gotta go, you know. But then when they tried to do like people that moved to the southern regions, they're trying to like, you know, grow, and they're like, yo, there's fertile land here, we have crops. But they're like, damn, like, we cannot take this summer heat. Like, this is a lot of work. Like, we're not. So they learned that the Portuguese had started going to Africa to get labor. And so they were, because the thing is, the people think it was like just a British thing. No, it was the Portuguese. They did it first, or they were amongst the first. And then, you know, the Europeans were like, you might have just did something, you know?
Yeah.
So they just hopped on board.
Sad.
They did the same thing. And girl, it's ridiculous. So it's kind of like they had that same intimidation, but also at the same time, superiority complex.
Yeah.
Like somehow they were able to coexist, which is why so much shit doesn't make sense.
Definitely.
It's like, okay, so you're trying to tell me that I'm weak, but you're utilizing me because, you know? So it's just, it's strange. And you can see that today when people, like when non-Black girls fetishize Black men. And I mean, first of all, we've been known this was a thing, but then I saw a Snapchat post. I don't know if you've seen it before, but this girl, like, I mean, she literally, like, she didn't hide her name. She said straight up, point blank, she was like, we don't give a damn about what's happening right now. Just because I want to sleep with a Black guy doesn't mean I have to care about what's happening. Verbatim.
Wait, what?
Exactly. And so she's saying, like, just because we want mixed kids, da-da-da-da-da. And I'm just like, you're still going to have Black children even if they are 50% white. Like, at the end of the day, like, you think these people care? You think racists will care?
Right.
They don't care about the 50% white. They care about that the other 50% is also not white.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm just thinking, and then, you know, I mean, as a Black woman, I'm like, whenever you say that, I'm thinking like, because I mean, for one, there are white men that think that too. But you know, that's a different ballgame. But it really is. That's a whole different discussion entirely. But it's just kind of like, girl, what? Like, that's a whole human being at the end of the day. Like, just because you favor one thing about him doesn't, what? You know, like, because let's say if you were to have, you know, get pregnant with, you know, a Black man's child, like.
Well, I hope he's thinking about what she's saying,
that's
too.
That's what I'm saying. And there's just so many instances of that. I'm just like, you are telling your Black child they don't matter. Or at least 50% of them does not.
Yeah.
And that's the case with so many of them. Like, so many biracial kids, they talk about their experiences whenever they spend time with their white families. And they're, like, ostracized, or they make racial slurs. This is probably coming from aunts, uncles, probably their own parent, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm just, like, how do y'all not see that as a problem?
Definitely.
You know, because people assume, like, well, if I was willing to have kids with you, clearly I'm not racist. Girl, Thomas Jefferson has mixed kids.
Oh, wow.
And he still has slaves, girl. What are you talking about? Like,
Yeah.
it's there. You know, there were so many slave masters that had kids with their slaves. Like, whether it was out of rape or maybe in those few cases they were genuinely in love with them, girl. Apparently it happened. I wasn't there. I can't confirm.
I cannot confirm.
But apparently it was a thing. So to them, they're like, well, clearly if I'm able to love you and want to have kids with you, I'm not racist. And I'm just like,
well, and I think a lot of people don't know like what it means to be racist because you said this I think earlier about they associate words and derogatory terms with racism.
Mm-hmm.
But I watched an Instagram live and she was talking about how even if you don't think you're racist or like you're like I have black friends or like, whatever your excuse is, like you need to really look inward right now of like what makes you uncomfortable? What have you done? What have you condoned? Like, what have you contributed?
Yep.
I think, like, one thing I saw, too, was why can't white people love black people as much as they love black culture? So, like, look inside that, too. Like, what music do you listen to? And, like, what have you said, like, the N-word when no one's around? Like, stuff like that you may not think that you're a racist, but, like, can you look inside and make sure that you're really, like, working on everything that you may not realize is not overtly racist, but like still
exactly
is that energy.
Yeah, and it's just kind of like even just not giving credit where it's due. Like when we learn things in school, like when we think of these awesome scientists, these awesome inventors, what's something that they all have in common?
They're white men. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry. Right. I was like, I hate this answer.
No, but you're right. But I mean, yes, essentially, yeah. And maybe they'll sprinkle in some, George Washington Carver, maybe some female scientists in there. But it's like, no, like
you don't learn about this. Yeah,
there are some day-to-day things that were created by the black people you want to hate so damn much. Girl, the stoplight. You're welcome.
Thank
like
you.
It's like I'm not taking credit for that, but you know what I'm saying. Like, the neurosurgery, like. Rock and roll, the electric guitar was made by somebody's grandmother, girl.
Good music, honestly, in general. Let's be honest, jazz, like
girl, like, and it's funny. So whenever people are taking credit for that, comes from this oppressed community, like, it hurts. You're like, damn. It's like, okay, we can't have nothing, like, So whenever you see like alternative black people, like who love rock and who love this, they're like, So you don't want to be black or you don't want to be this. And this can come from not even just other white people, but black people too. And I'm just kind of like, it's literally ignorance. Because if y'all knew where rock came from, you wouldn't be saying that.
Definitely.
It doesn't, so I'm just kind of like, literally y'all, like I said earlier, open a book. Or even go online. Really, honestly, try and even go online. Like it's faster and it's easier and it requires less paper. Like,
and let's talk to those backhand comments.
Yes.
Because, so well, you don't act black, or you're an Oreo, right? Like white on the inside, black on the outside. Like these things that you may not have thought are offensive, or like, and I think you can. I mean, I can think of like elementary school, especially when you don't know what the hell you're saying, and like all these things are being said to people of color. And listen, so like, here's why it's wrong. If you didn't know, that when you're saying like, oh, you don't act black, or like, oh, you act white, it's inferring that like, oh, well, you act more like me, so I like that. Or like, oh, like you're also insinuating acting, quote unquote, right, black is bad, but so don't say that stuff. Like,
The amount of times I heard that in high school.
But that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. Especially when you're in school, because I feel like we just really no idea what we're saying.
Yeah, and there was a study taken in the 90s, and, there were a lot of black kids that have been performing well at certain schools, but because they were told things like that, because they were performing well, they were criticized because maybe not just their white peers, but even their own black peers would be like, oh, you want to be white so bad just because you wanted to do well in school. So some of these students would purposefully do bad in school to feel accepted by their own community.
I believe it.
And so to me, I'm just kind of like, can you imagine having to willingly like sacrifice your own academic achievements, your own academic excellence that you worked hard for to feel accepted by your own people. And obviously not every black person is like that, obviously. But
right, yeah.
But given that the school system, the classroom to prison pipeline, Black kids sometimes feel really discouraged because for some teachers, like, they assume they're not going to do well. So you have to go the extra mile. You have to do the most. Like, I almost burnt myself out my senior year because I was like, no, like, I have to show out. I have to do this. I can't be complacent because I don't want that stereotype to be like attached to me. You know what I'm saying? Because I had a friend, academics is just not her thing. Never was.
Yeah.
And that's not because she's Black. She just...
No, as a person. That's like a person thing.
Yeah, like, school is just not her thing. Like, that's it. Like, she went because she had to,
right.
you know, but at the end of the day, like, she, you know, as long as she was passing, like, she was fine. Like, she was straight. Like, she didn't care for extracurriculars like that. Like, it's not that deep. But people take that as laziness.
Right.
You know, whereas let's say if, like, a white kid were to do it, it's like, oh, school's not just this thing.
It's crazy. Yeah. Double standard for sure.
Exactly. So I burnt myself the hell out, and it was just a mess specifically because I didn't want to be associated with that stereotype. And you know, again, yeah, right. And then again, you know, being African as well, like, Kenyans take school so seriously, which I appreciated. And honestly, a lot of my drive didn't even come from my mom pushing me. That was something I had within myself.
Okay.
Because I'm a prideful person, so I'm just kind of like, y'all not finna do me like that. No, ma'am. Just you know, but. In a way, that was like, not self-hatred, but, you know, like, why couldn't I accept my Black friends I didn't care for school? Like, it's like, in a way, I'm looking down on them the exact same way because I'm trying so hard to not be like them.
Definitely.
That wasn't right. If you don't like school, you don't like school. Truly, it's not for everyone. So, yeah, girl, just don't say that to your friends because we internalize that and we have to live with that for the rest of our lives.
Yeah.
So, and... I don't know how to explain it to someone who may not experience it, but it's, I don't know. I don't know how to explain that. It's weird. Because even the other day, like, I had to explain to my friend, like, this is every day for us. Because she was like, oh, I thought racism was like an every other day kind of thing. Like, you know. And I'm like, girl, no. It's just kind of like not seeing yourself in the media and stuff. Like, you don't realize how much that bothers you until you finally do. Like, I didn't read a book where the protagonist was a Black woman who wasn't a slave for the first time. Until I was like 15.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was sci-fi, girl. Black girls, and like, we don't see that. And I'm just like, this is so amazing. Like, where has this been? And it was in my school library. I was in that hole every day. Like, me and the librarians were on a first name well, okay, I can't call them by their first names. But I mean, like, if it's lipped out, it wouldn't have been a problem. So I was just, that's why even now my goddaughter, like, she's 3. So we are working, me and her mom's my cousin as well. So we're like really trying to put her onto content that she sees people that look like her because you internalize that. Like,
definitely,
you know? So, all right, I'm done.
No. Like, I'm listening. I'm here for it all.
It's a lot.
Well, how do you, okay. Well, we've talked about this too. Like, what can you do to help Black Lives Matter? Like, I had that same question, especially when, like, this was all first going down. And I went to one of the protests. We haven't even talked about the protests. I guess,
girl.
From that point of view. But anyway, we'll get to that. And so, yeah, I at first, you know, relied on my Black friends or really just wanted y'all's opinion. And, like, especially when it comes to race, I feel like white women, I don't know how white men get away with everything, but, like, white women, I feel like, or just myself in, like, the past, I sometimes just don't say the right thing. So I think that was, like, my biggest concern. No, seriously, like, people got really mad at me when I was protesting coronavirus. I mean, not protesting coronavirus. I was protesting, like, South by Southwest happening.
Yeah.
Because of coronavirus, and that got completely construed to me being xenophobic, and it was really bad. So anyway, I have, like, PTSD from that because I'm like, oh my God. Like, the same thing I'm sure some of you guys are feeling is that defensive, like, I'm not racist. But I think this was, like, a totally different thing because, first of all, nothing I said got construed wrong. So thank God I didn't have that. But, like, with that being said, it was, like, I really wanted to show that, like, I actually care. Yeah. And I don't want to check a box. Cough, cough. The black tiles on Blackout Tuesday.
Oh, my God. Oh, we'll talk about that later.
Okay. So anyway, like, when I did reach out, there were things that, like, they were very helpful advice. I think, Yoki, you gave me the advice that this should be on all platforms. And I think one of my biggest concerns, insecurities or whatever, was that, like, okay, if I post about it here and there and there and there, are people going to think, like, I'm just, like, trying to get attention, bandwagoning, or like get clout off of this or whatever it would be. So I think you saying, like, no, like, this is actually a genuine conversation, the, like, need for the movement, right?
Yeah.
it has good intention. And then on top of that, like, you guys, like, signing the protests. I mean, signing the protests. You guys help me. Signing the petitions. If you don't know where to find those, I do have, like, a highlight on my Instagram, and you can just swipe up, sign right there. If not, go to change.org, and I guarantee you it's on the homepage.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I guarantee you. And then you can, okay, I was going to say you guys should email the Minnesota Police Department. However, there is this swipe up link that they made a tiny URL. So it's tinyurl.com/email for Floyd. And if you swiped up, it made this draft of everything that you would need to say. It was already sending it to the people that needed to receive the email.
I like that.
And all you have to do is change, like, your name in the draft and your city and state, and then you send it, and it demands for justice, right? Okay. Yeah. Well, the past 2 days, Cameron and I have been getting messages that, like, the emails recipients' inbox is full. Ooh. So they're no longer incepting
like the emails.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh, crap. But I think that's good because the other 3 officers were charged just yesterday, I believe. Yep. And then the main man.
Derek Chauvin.
I'm so sorry. Like, him, so I'm like, what's his name? And so anyway, he got a 2nd-degree charge for murder. Okay, that's good. But with that being said, there is still an email link for Breonna Taylor.
Yes.
And so you guys, again, go to the swipe up and email them until they are not receiving emails, I guess.
Girl, yes. Like, these petitions, let me tell you, like, I know people love saying peaceful protests don't work, but typically they wouldn't work if they're falling on deaf ears. So you have to disrupt people's lives to get their attention.
Totally. And I think it's doing an awesome job.
Am I saying to break their windows? No. Yeah. Am I saying to maybe, block their way to work? Maybe. Yeah. As long as no one's dying, baby, like, what's the issue? I'm literally trying to get your attention, and you're blatantly ignoring me. What lengths do I have to go? And then, again, I don't condone the looting. I don't condone the rioting. And also, a lot of the protesters do not. You were at the Austin protest, and you said yourself, people were peacefully protesting. There are people who come with the agenda of the movement, which is to peacefully protest, or really just to get, stop killing us, period.
Yeah.
First of all, the fact that we have to go to these lengths again doesn't make sense.
And if you're sitting here thinking, like, at any point that, oh, well, I thought racism was over or whatever.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. We just need to check your privilege. That's really it. It really takes going into a different lens to, like, see things that are there. Yeah. You're just actually not noticing them. And as long as you recognize it, like, it's okay. But, speaking about the protest, so Cameron and I went, and it started on the grounds inside the gates of the Capitol, the Texas Capitol, which is in Austin. And I think up by the doors of the Capitol were just, like, I don't know, they were like the army, and then you had, like, there were so many different units of
armed forces.
Armed forces.
Emphasis on armed.
That's really all it is armed forces regardless. And so we started walking over to where, like, the protesters really were angry about something. Yeah. And you just see this group of people, like, throwing water bottles, and you obviously hear chanting. These people specifically were chanting, like, Black Lives Matter, and then they would go, let him go. And you could tell they had someone. So the cops basically had, like, put someone in custody, and then the whole, like, protesting group, like, surrounded them and, like, would not let them get out. It's not funny, but regardless, when they did pull the man out, I don't know what he did. However, he was a white man. And then I was like, okay, I completely just disregarded it because clearly all the protesters wanted him to stay, so he must have done something at least, like, worthy. But going off that was my first experience. And then it started, like, the armed forces started kind of pushing out, like, very slowly, like, walking away from the Capitol and more towards the gates, and kind of, like, slowly but surely making us move out. And I remember just, like, being very anxious because there were so many people. It was really loud noises. There was things being thrown. I'm on Capitol grounds with armed forces, and I'm like, I don't know what's right and wrong here.
Terrified.
Yep. And I think that needs to be said, that, like, that anxiety that I felt in that situation is similar to what Black people go through all the time. Every day. And that is just so unfair. But regardless, as it continued on and you would hear people yelling in cops' faces and stuff like that. And of course, there are people peacefully protesting. That's kind of the whole point of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Every time, though, you guys, someone would be dragged away from the crowd, it was like a kicking and screaming white girl or like a white man, again, like I just said. And I'm glad that at least all I saw was white people in the sense of not continuing to arrest black people during this movement. But that all just is to be said that, like, are you there to protest with them or are you there to, like, let out your animal instincts?
Exactly. Yes.
So, and again, that's, like, not what's being seen in the media. And I'm not trying to sit here and be like, white people, you guys need to feel the white guilt and da-da-da. But I am saying, like, if you are trying to be helpful and you're going to these movement or you're going to these protests, like, put yourself in front of black bodies, like, peacefully protest, like, make sure that people are getting water and, like, milk and stuff like that for tear gas, because with all the chaos that I personally saw some white people do, it instigated the cops to use force. Like, they had to use tear gas and they had to use rubber bullets.
Yes.
And Cameron got tear gas in his eye. It was, like, immediately just being, like, you're suffocated, but your eyes are, like, burning. And then on top of that, like, 2 people got shot with a rubber bullet right next to us.
Yeah.
And it feels like a war zone.
It's like a whole Cameron. Do y'all know Cameron? That man don't do nothing for shit. To get maced or tear gas, y'all have to understand, like, he's probably one of those peaceful people I know, at least. That man doesn't deserve to get tear gas.
But it just shows, like, and they weren't, it's almost like they weren't even targeting the right people. It's like they were just like, meh.
Like, did you hear about that boy that died in Omaha because the cops started firing into the crowd? Mind you, I don't even think the bullet was actually aimed. Actually, you know, I have to read back on that. I don't think the bullet was aimed for him. If it was, correct me, definitely. I'm kind of forgetting. But at the end of the day, he died.
Okay.
Literally, the cop shot into a crowd of people. Why didn't you think that it was going to hit somebody? Or maybe you did know it was going to hit somebody.
You did. You had to have.
Thus, kind of reinforcing our point.
Right.
You're abusing your power. You shot a child. He wasn't even, how old was he? I don't remember. I think he was younger than me, but he looked younger. He looked younger than us. So I'm just kind of like, this is why we're protesting. This is you're proving our point. Another person died, and first of all, there's been a series of deaths within the last week, which people are. Yeah, there's been at least like 5 that I could think of, and I'm just like, you're proving our point.
Yeah, and then I would say too, I've seen videos on Instagram of the cops breaking their cars and the cops instructing some white woman to, like, what she should paint, spray paint on, like, a wall. And they're things that, like, because I'm not anti-cop, right? Like, I'm anti-racism and I'm, like, pro-police reform. So
yes, police reform. Yes,
needs to happen.
Yes.
But when you actually see proof and video of the cops doing these bad things to themselves, it really, like,
did you see that picture of, like, the 4 cop cars that were graffitied? And I'm just thinking to myself, like, this is not the 80s. Like, do y'all really think that these rebellious black kids still spray paint? They only did that because they didn't have Twitter, girl. You think we're gonna go out of our way, buy paint cans? What? Like, that's how you know they're literally following a stereotype. And I saw this one picture. This old white guy was standing in front of, like, some graffiti, and it literally said "Blacks rule." Amanda, what black person do you know will say something like that? Answer honestly.
At first, I was like, "Where's this going? Like, is this a good thing?" And then you're like, "Wait, would a black person ever say black?"
Think of Amanda, please. Honestly,
I think all we have to say to that is my first email address was dogs rule forever. So I think you could tell.
Like, you can tell, you can know. It's like, how you gonna frame me and do a bad job? That's how you know. Like, fuck 12 BLM. Ain't nobody spray painting BLM nowhere. I'm not trying to. Man, it's so irritating. I'm just like, why would I put myself in that position?
Yeah.
I'm literally asking you, the police, to protect me and to not kill me or my brothers or anyone because you think we're intimidating.
Yeah.
Or you think we're thugs, or you think we're this, when literally history proves you're the thugs.
Yeah.
You're the savages.
Literally.
In the most literal sense. But then we can't hold that against you. Make it make sense. Like, it doesn't, something's something's not adding up, girl.
You guys, please go vote. Like, please
Yes,
vote.
yes, and not just for the president, for even
yeah.
your what are they called? Municipalities? I don't know the proper term, but like the lower governments and stuff like that.
Definitely.
And we're in Texas, right? Yeah. So our governor is Greg Abbott. Girl, I read the most ridiculous story about him the other day.
I'm not surprised.
So did you know he was on the police force in Atlanta like, was it 10 years ago or was it 5 years ago? I think he was on the Atlanta police force at some point.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. So he was a lieutenant.
What?
And he was, quote unquote, let go. I guess he resigned before he could be let go. Because when he had pulled someone over for like, I don't fucking know, maybe a broken tail, like something.
Right.
Something small. It was a white woman. So she was hesitant. She was scared because this was during the time I think someone had just died in police custody, and it hit the nation. Like everyone's so pretty on edge, and Atlanta has its own racial issues. Like hate crime wasn't considered a crime until I don't think it still is actually. So anyway, he pulls her over and he goes to the window, asks for information and stuff like that, and she's like, I'm really scared, like. Clearly, she's clearly scared,
Yeah.
And so he's like, okay, like, man, like, it's like, relax, And she was like, I'm scared that, because y'all kill people, because of what's been happening. And then he's like, oh, no, ma'am, haven't you heard? We only kill black people. Caught on tape. The video's still there. You can look it up. It's there. Yep.
And when was that? So it was back.
This was less than 10 years ago. Yeah.
That makes me so sick. I haven't heard anything good about him, like, ever.
So to me, I'm thinking, like, okay. Well, so he went from being let go on the police force to being a governor of an entire state.
That makes no sense.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Oh, that makes me sick.
Very disheartening.
Oh, well, I don't think I've talked about it on the podcast, but so I started watching When They See Us last night on Netflix, and it is, I think, like a Netflix original series based on a true story, which I didn't know that, and it's really heavy, you guys. So it talks about what do they call them, like the Central Park Jogger 5 or something?
No, the Central Park 5.
The Central Park 5,
I think
yeah.
so, yeah.
And basically, it's a real story, and it also involves our president being a psycho killer, pretty much. I don't even know. It's not a good word. It's just like really...
I mean, if you want to get really, really technical.
Yeah, okay. So anyway, sorry, let me preface. So basically, it's a story about how these 5, 6, I mean, they really interrogated like a bunch, like 13 or more, but teenage black men, or I guess teenage boys, kind of a paradox, but, and they coerced them into a rape of a white woman, which is disgusting. Like, I think watching it was so hard because, first of all, I went to Dallas schools, like public schools too, and so I was very familiar with like juvie and like just like the little things that they arrest kids for doing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a majority of the time it was black children, and it always just like never sat right with me. But I didn't see that it was literally what this movie is talking about, that they blame these black kids for things that they didn't do because they need an answer. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
they need a scapegoat.
White woman, exactly. Like, a white woman was raped. All right, well, then we're going to make this story work because we need the convict in custody, whatever, to make them look good. And it was so sick because, like, there was this one boy that was 14, and just making a 14-year-old come up with a lie about how he raped a woman is insane. That has to be like some type of child predatorness, because
it's ridiculous.
He literally made him talk about his private parts, and that was just like so uncomfortable. But I mean, it's a privilege to watch it and not have to live it. So it's like, I highly recommend people like get out of that like box and push yourself to watch it, because it's based on a true story. And our own president got involved in the sense of, before he was president, this was in 1989, he paid $85,000 to put an ad out in New York City to have these kids on death row. Yeah. Like, what? And can you imagine, first of all, these kids end up going to jail innocently, 6 to 13 years, lose their entire like youth. And can you imagine getting out of prison though, and your president being like the president being the guy that wanted you on death row?
That wanted you dead. And tell me why they were at the New York protests. They went
were?
to jail and they still have to do that. There's a whole movie about them telling about how this is a problem. And they still have to do that all those years later. It's ridiculous.
It's so ridiculous.
And I'll be honest with you, Amanda, I haven't watched it. And not even because I truthfully speaking, I cannot bring myself to watch it.
I don't think you should.
I can't.
I can't. It was so hard for me and Cameron to watch. Like, I can't imagine. And just because of realizing what's going on, right? So it's like, there's not that wall of you being like, oh, well, that's just an act. Like, you know what I mean? Because sometimes you can watch a scary movie and you can be like, oh, well, at least that's not real because that was a scene in a movie.
Mm-hmm.
But with this, it's like you try to put up that wall and you're like, oh, my God, you can't. Because it's so real.
Yeah. And even for example, you and Cameron watching it, you were like, okay, this is real life. But when you look at those boys, you don't see yourself.
Right.
You don't see your brothers. You don't see, So to me, and at the time, I had my boyfriend at the time. And he was a black man. So I'm just kind of like, I cannot sit down and bring myself to watch this.
100%.
Even if I was to sit down and watch movies about the Annabelle himself, as tough as they can be to watch, what's distancing me from feeling like that? I don't know how to explain it. Of course, I have empathy. Those are my people, obviously. But then that happened so many years ago, and obviously that technically isn't really happening now. So I'm like, damn, this really hurts me. But then I have that confidence knowing, okay, well, I'll never be a slave though.
Right.
Type shit. But then seeing the Park Five, that was. But 1989, that was 30 years ago.
But they didn't even get their trial till 1990. So really just
It was 30 years ago. So I'm just thinking and also those boys who are grown
30
now.
years ago, girl, that's 20. Oh, wait. Okay, 30.
Because the time.
Sorry, I'm 21. Okay, yeah.
No.
That was 20 years ago.
No, even I was confused. So I have to do the math in my head real quick. But I forgot it was 2020 now.
But still.
But those boys who are men now, grown-ass men now, are still, they have to live with that. They're living their lives now, of course, and of course, they're free and they're doing what they need to do. But it's
it changes you. You grow up and
it's a lot. And my kids have my friends have kids, and when I look at them, I'm just thinking to myself it's now you have to really have. The discussion has been had with us, but it's we weren't trying to do it again. And it's tough, but
it is tough, and that's what. You brought up, I don't see me in them. I watch live church, Shoreline City, and based in Dallas. And our pastor Earl is a man of color, a black man, and he was talking on all of this, and he was just very well put together. But he stared at the camera and he was like, "You guys may not see yourself. You may not see your children, your brother, exactly like what you were saying." And he said, "But I saw me." Yeah. And it's just so fucking sad.
No, it hits because for some people, they're really coming to terms with that.
Yeah.
Within the last week.
Right.
7 days. This has been a reality for some people.
So long.
Their entire life, you come into the world and it's people already hate you because you exist. How does that work? That doesn't make any sense. And it's just, at the end of the day, yes, but at the same time, just like you, I have this one life to live. I have to enjoy it to the best of my ability. I can't, I go through things too, and this is defecting. This is affecting me directly and my community, but I can't go about hating my life just because someone wants to end it so damn bad.
Definitely not.
And also I'm a human being. I'm entitled to have safety and feeling secure, just like you, which is literally what the movement's about. But people genuinely believe, they believe it's a cult. What about it is cultish? Cult, girl?
It's not. And also political people saying that, or not political people, but people being oh, I don't want to get political. Well, this is not political. This is human rights.
Exactly.
There's nothing political about that. And it's just a lot. And so what would you say, wait, I actually have a question that might be ignorant, but I
ask it, girl. Know ask it.
Is, so I feel I guess really before Black Lives Matter came back, right this week, literally this week.
Girl.
It was PC to say African American, and then I feel like black wasn't in the vocabulary that was okay for white people to say. And so then with Black Lives Matter, I mean, I was talking to one of my friends, and when we were trying to put out a statement for school, she was like, don't say people of color. She's like, this is not POC, like this is not African American. She was like black, and she was like capital letter B. Everyone else gets a capital letter.
Yeah.
Blacks deserve capital letter.
Yep.
So anyway, when do you use African American? When do you use black? And
okay. Because honestly, people really don't know.
Okay.
Some black people don't know.
Okay.
Because hence why they told me, looked me dead in my eye and told me I was not black. Anyway, so I digress. So, okay, let's get technical. People confuse ethnicity, nationality, and race all the time. All the time.
Right.
For example, like Japan or Korea. Those are homogenous nations. So saying Korean is synonymous with ethnicity because that's what the vast majority of the population looks like.
Right.
But this is America. You know, so you get here, we already have the indigenous people, the Native Americans. Ethnically speaking, like that's, you know, they were tan, they were, you know, black hair, long black hair, you know, maybe they had like some defining features that every race has.
Definitely.
You know, same with white people. Y'all were up north, so you had paler skin, weather was rough. You had the biological factors to, you know, adapt to your whatever, your what's it called, your environment. So, for instance, you're a white girl, but are you white European?
No, right?
No, because
Okay,
you
that's
were.
what I thought.
Yeah, because you're of European descent.
Probably, but yeah, no.
But okay, let me say specifically. What's your last name? Saunders. Okay,
Yeah.
so that could be like in the Nordic-ish region, maybe British, Irish. We don't know.
Yeah, I think it's Irish.
Yeah, probably Irish, right? But you yourself,
Right,
you, Amanda Jewel Saunders, is not Irish.
Right.
You are American.
Right.
Because you were born on American soil.
Right.
But there are white people who are in Ireland, but they are Irish not because they are white, but because they were born in Ireland.
Right.
But then because at some point in time, Ireland was homogenous because that's where you're from. So, but then there are black Irish people.
Right. Okay.
So it doesn't make sense for me to call a black Irish person African American. They are not American.
Yeah.
People exactly nationality. Girl, it don't make no damn sense. Like it doesn't, you know. So to say a black, because let me tell you something. People think that racism is like, ooh, Americans. Anti-blackness is found everywhere. Everywhere. Period. Especially in Europe, girl. That's where it came from. Like, duh. Like, yes. So, yeah. See, you have to say black because this isn't just happening here.
Okay.
It's everywhere.
Yeah.
There are black people in Africa, but they are not African American.
Right.
They are African.
I don't know why you had to explain it like that for it to click, but like that makes so much sense.
There are white people in South Africa, speak the language and everything, but they are not black.
Right.
They're white, but they're not American. Because people, it's amazing how white people can be from all these places. It's like, yeah, I'm white, but then they'll say some bullshit like, oh yeah, but I'm Italian, I'm this. I'm like,
they do that.
It's like, okay, got a little spice. You're still white, girl. You put a little bit of oregano in your pasta. You're not
Italians
special.
and Greeks, they're always like
ridiculous. And I'm just like, I know y'all lying. Oh, girl, it's a mess. As if Alexander the Great wasn't blonde and blue eyes. Shut up.
I'm dead.
But yeah, I mean, I'm glad you asked because people really don't know.
Yeah. No, that's good to know that a lot of people don't know because I didn't know, but now I know, and I'm glad we're here.
Because people think black is a curse word, but I'm thinking to myself, was it not you that gave me that title in the first place?
Definitely.
People are like, like, you know that slur, how people are saying Karen's a slur?
Well, I didn't know people are saying that, but that's funny because...
Don't call me Karen. I'm like, you're exuding...
Karen energy.
That's what I'm saying. Like, you know, it's like you calling the cops on people for no damn reason, girl. That's Karen behavior.
That is a Karen behavior.
It's exactly what it is. But is every white woman a Karen? Of course not.
No,
obviously not. But there are those that are.
Definitely.
Without a doubt. But yeah.
Well, another question is, so obviously if you guys didn't know by now, I'm white. And so how do white creators keep the conversation going when, like, I mean, next week or the week after when it's not,
honestly, the way people are exposing their racist friends or their racist colleagues, whatever, that's not something that should stop at the end of the week.
Right.
Keep doing that.
Definitely.
Because I don't know if you've seen those videos, but y'all, there are influencers that are going to these stores, like I guess the ones that were looted or whatever, and they'll literally have someone take a picture of them, like kind of as if they're cleaning up. They'll take the picture and then they'll go. Or they'll go to the protest for literally, or they'll provoke the police for a photo op. It's like, yeah, y'all see me fighting and I look good. Like, let me tell y'all, e-boys need to be stopped. In 2020, like, y'all really are trying to have this bad boy persona when you shouldn't be associating bad boy with protest. That is not. You protesting authority is for your own selfish gain. We're trying to tell authority that they're wrong for abusing their power. Not the same thing. And so these influencers are literally taking advantage of this for fun.
Wow.
So for us, we're like, so for you, in this case, if you know people or if you see something online, don't hesitate to put that person in their place. Like, this is not cute. Like, take this shit down. Like, you're not doing nothing. Or my favorite Twitter trend right now is when someone says something, but then someone maybe goes back into old tweets or they find them somewhere else kind of contradicting what they said. And they go, this you? Right. Let me tell you. No, for real. Like, just like, act up. You're going to get dragged across Beyonce's internet. Don't play with me.
Beyonce's internet. I love that.
It's like, so that same energy y'all are having now, keep it.
Yeah.
That's it. Period. Okay. And so to me, it's just like, and that applies to anyone.
Definitely.
Strangers and family alike.
Okay. Well, that's how you end stuff. But is there like a way to like, so you guys, I have a podcast. A lot of my podcast episodes were recorded before all this going on. So there's not anything in them that could like talk on this. But like going forward with other white creators, like, is there like a way to talk about it, to like bring it up, and not in a way like if they're like, I hope I'm not associated with anyone racist. So that probably wouldn't be able to happen. I'd be like, you're racist. But you know what I mean? Like, how could I talk about it to keep the conversation going?
Definitely just more exposure for Black artists. A lot of them have to try really hard. And I learned that at UNT, actually. I went to UNT for school. And me and my friend, we co-founded the Black Content Creators Association because, because UNT is like super artsy and super. And
I've heard that.
So there was just so much Black talent, so much Black creatives. But
for sure,
within our own community, we would kind of pit against each other instead of work together. And we noticed that, and we were like, okay, so here's a space where you can share ideas and you can help each other out. Like, if you for example, like let's say I wanted to have a podcast but I didn't know where to begin, and then maybe someone's like, actually, I'm a sound engineer, like, this is what I like to do. Let's work together so I can perfect my craft and you can, you know what I'm saying? So it's very community based. And then it was then and only then when I realized, like, damn, like, there are other creative orgs on this campus, but it's like they don't even feel like their ideas are welcomed.
Definitely.
And because of the lack of representation for us in the media, well, I don't want to say, lack. That's a good word. Lack of representation, a lot of these majority white organizations, like, if we propose an idea, like, they won't get it. Like, they don't know how to connect with this, so to them it's not relevant. So these Black people are like, these Black creators are like, okay, I don't feel like I'm being heard right now. These filmmakers, there's a lot of filmmakers at UNT, and we have this thing called Short Film Club, but it was mostly white, and there would be some, maybe a black filmmaker who could make a movie or something, but it wasn't often like, Jordan Peele type shit. But they wouldn't take it because it's like, this is not our audience. Like, they're not really. But then it's like, why isn't it though? Like, you're kind of ignoring a demographic. Like, you can't say what your audience is when you're kind of excluding us at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, you're refusing to diversify your audience.
Definitely.
Like, why did I have to make a whole org to make these people feel welcome? I shouldn't have had to do that.
Definitely.
So
I'm glad you did, though.
I'm glad too. Like, I mean, I wanted to just grow and be strong, and I'd love to see it at other schools as well. Like, it'd be cool to have one at UT, have one at Tech, somewhere. But
that would be cool.
It was just like, people are like, why do you have Black whatever only? I'm like, well, because everywhere else, like, y'all don't, we're not included.
Definitely.
We deserve to feel it, like, heard and seen. Again, why we're protesting.
Yep.
It all leads back to the same thing. And also, racism isn't just, honestly, Black Lives Matter is more than just police brutality, and I think we should also work on expanding that. Because it's like, it doesn't make sense how, if we were to both be pregnant, I have 200% more of a chance of dying in labor. Mind you, we're probably in the same socioeconomic status. That doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make sense. And that's kind of what they were talking about yesterday on the news or something, about how, and maybe you said something to me, but that Black men are, for some reason, more susceptible to coronavirus than any other demographic. And
not even biologically speaking, in terms of, there's something in me that makes me more vulnerable. It's literally like, external circumstances.
Okay.
Like in terms of maybe it's lack of accessibility, or maybe it's racial bias, because there was something going around that said people of African descent are immune to coronavirus, and that's simply not true.
Immune?
Exactly. So they have. I mean, doctors are open about it. They're like, there's a racial bias in the medical field. You know, it's there. It doesn't make sense how we can come from the same socioeconomic background, Amanda, and I'm less likely to survive. Like, that doesn't, like, I can say I have pain and some doctors won't believe you. They'll like discredit you because they have this thing where it's like, no, Africans are so strong. They're so this. And that's why we have OBGYNs today, because they used to experiment on Black women because they genuinely believed that we couldn't feel any pain.
Oh my God.
Right.
I'm telling you, all these like insecurities, I swear, them being like threatened by your superior traits, because
it's ridiculous.
That would be a superpower if you couldn't be.
Yeah.
But also, I'm just like imagining. I'm like curled up in my seat right now, imagining what experiments went on after she said OBGYN.
It's so crazy. Can you imagine that metal ass bullshit? Like, you know what, girl? We're gonna test this out, real quick. Don't worry about it. Not gonna put you under anesthetics because you can't feel anything anyways.
Yeah.
Girl.
Well, speaking of feeling things, I think a big thing right now that we should all be feeling is empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy, especially for our Black community, on what's going on. And also, I heard someone else talk about like trying to call out racism in your own family. And there's, I think she was trying to explain like there's a difference between like ignorant and then just like apathetic. And so just like you can have empathy for those people even though we don't want to, but just like for them not understanding. And I hope that, I'm not saying like condoning that, I'm saying like have empathy for them, because that is so sad that they can't see it.
Like they're humans too.
And exactly. And just keep working at it, you guys. Like keep calling them out, keep posting on Facebook, because I know all of my conservative family members are seeing that too. I'm like, God, like it needs it. And reach out to your Black friends and just ask them like if they're doing okay, if there's anything you can do for them. Only if that's authentic, you know what I mean? Like obviously don't like, hey, I love you. If you're fake. But yeah. Any last words? Thank you so much. Wow.
I know I'm grateful too, and I feel like I don't know who your target audience is in general. I don't know who pays attention to your stuff, but this is relevant to anyone who's listening.
That's what I would.
At the end of the day, like, what people don't realize is, don't be like, oh, well, I was young, I didn't know. Okay, all right, you confronted that you messed up.
Yeah.
But you said what you said, and I've had to internalize it, and I still have to for the rest of my life.
And don't invalidate Black people either.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
If you're gonna like reach out at all or have any conversation at all, like validate their experiences, because
exactly
it's just insane.
Okay. You know what I'm saying? And to make my friend understand, I had to tell her like, girl, how would you feel about a man telling you about your female experiences? How the hell would he know? He wouldn't. He wouldn't. Exactly. It's the same thing. The same way you didn't choose to be born with a uterus and some other questionable body parts that people want to control so bad.
They do. Yeah.
It doesn't. Did you know that Viagra was insured? You can get insurance for that. Sorry, I had to. Y'all, I just need y'all to know.
That's insane. I did not know that. No, I didn't know that, because they keep trying to take away our birth control. Right. And yet, also, why are we having to take pills? There's
a male version of birth control, and it's been proven effective.
Really?
Yeah. And I'm just like, y'all playing.
Wow.
Anyway, sorry. Another conversation for another day. But
women's rights will wait.
Right. Imagine I have to fight this fight and I have to fight that one too, girl. Yeah. It's a mess. I know. And then immigrants. Immigrants. Yes, ma'am. Yes, I'm very intersectional.
Yes. Yep. But you're killing it. I wish. Stop. Oh, well.
Oh, yeah, but
tell them where they can find you too.
Okay, I'm on Instagram, TikTok. TikTok is so much fun. What else? Twitter. I reserve Facebook for like my friends, because I feel like But I mean, if you find me there, you find me there. Whatever. And my usernames are the same all across the board. It's Yoki, because I'm not that original, and I really forgetful. So I had to
You gotta spell it though.
Yeah, YOK, 2 A's and then 2 Y's.
There
so
you
YOK.
Hey.
Yes.
Hey.
Exactly.
I'm dead. Well, thanks so much for having this conversation.
Yeah.
I feel like I was gonna like title it like uncomfortable conversation, but it wasn't uncomfortable, and I realized I probably am like the least uncomfortable having these conversations. But whatever. So thanks again.
Of course.
And keep doing what you can, you guys. Like I mentioned, the petitions and calling your legislators, voting, sending the emails that I will leave in the show notes. Also, you can find them on my Instagram highlight. And then donating and also supporting Black-owned businesses, supporting Black-owned or Black creators, doing all the things to help stand in solidarity and support and call out racism, call out racists, and vote for a new president. And I'm like checking all these boxes that really need to be checked right now.
There's a lot, girl.
There's a lot of boxes.
There's too many.
And yeah. All right. Well, I think that's it.
Hell yeah. Hopefully this proves your point that this conversation doesn't have to be uncomfortable.
No. Yeah.
It doesn't.
I love that.
Yeah, just listen. If you're willing to listen, like, it's really not that bad. Like, that's it.
Listen, empathy, and validation.
Yes.
Now I have to like throw that third one in there now these days.
Oh, yes.
All right. Well, I love you.
Adios.
Bye.